The Matthew Dark Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, praise God and welcome in. So good to be with you. This is the Matthew Dark Show. Now, remember, hit subscribe, get your shows everywhere, never miss one. I think we're entering sort of a uncharted waters here this week, getting into May 4th, in which, let's set the record. On February the 28th, Donald Trump announced an invasion, bombing, war. We are live and active, killing brown people in the Middle East. We are going for it. Ayatollah, the school children. It's over 2 months ago now. And what have we felt on the back end? Heavy duty inflation and no end in sight. See, this wasn't really well thought out of from an America first perspective. The consequences of war every time are inflation. The question is it worth it? Is it worth paying more in everything you do in your life for foreign wars? Wars of choice, wars 6, 7, 8,000 miles away. For some demographics, it's a no-brainer. Our baby boomer generation, they are not willing to say no to President Trump right now. That's the problem. It's the only thing now holding this country's ambition in the Middle East connected. This is not a young person's issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is not an independence issue. This is an establishment, globalist neocon. And they are using this stubborn generation, the baby boomer, to go ahead and pursue atrocities. Of course, meanwhile, as we're still dealing with a closed Strait of Hormuz. Now, remember, let's just check and make sure our facts are correct with the president. Because in last July, he told us Operation Midnight Hammer. Do you remember? And right after that, it was congratulatory. It was, oh my goodness. We'll put the tweet up. But it said that the nuclear ambitions, the plan, the infrastructure, the ability to make nuclear weapons in Iran, at that moment in time, it was such a successful mission by the U.S. military, they cannot do that ever again. That's what he said, and that peace should reign all over. That's what he stated to us. And what we're finding is that's not even remotely true, that we were back in February with an intensified aggression. And then if you listen to Marco Rubio and some really good places that we have to pull from, the narrative at the beginning of the invasion, and this is from Marco Rubio, verbatim, is that Israel was planning an attack on Iran, and the United States knew there would be a response to the Israeli aggression. Therefore, the United States preemptively launched that attack. Now, that is one way to say it. The overwhelming theme on Iran, though, has been Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. We don't care what it costs, how long it takes, what we have to do. That's been the theme. So it's inconsistent when we say that they came in preemptive defense of Israel, but it was still the nuclear weapon, because then we were told that it was imminent. Donald Trump still says, listen, guys, believe me all you want. It was days away from the United States being wiped off the planet. I mean, you don't have the United States anymore. The day Iran gets a nuke. Now, when I say it out loud, it sounds crazy, but listen to me now. This is the boomer mentality. They are thinking like this right now, laying in bed at night, barely able to sleep, just in the thought Iran may have a nuclear weapon. Israel, we of course know, has hundreds, which means they are not threatened. See, that's the big lie too. Israel has as many nuclear weapons as any country on the planet. Now, they won't report it. They, of course, won't allow inspection. They have more. Israel's homeland will never be attacked. It can defend it in an instant. They've already declared, if we feel like the nation of Israel is under attack, we will spread nuclear warheads all over the world. They'll kill the world if they feel like they're being threatened. Nobody's invading Israel. That's a lie. But countries like Iran are absolutely in the way, and Saddam Hussein was one of those. Syria was. These are all countries that are in the way of a greater Israel. And that's why they're in Lebanon right now, killing Christians, destroying Christian cities, invading southern Lebanon somehow. And I know that they're going to tell you, oh, well, Hezbollah is there. And we must do that because that's a part of it. Now we'll have to sign up for that too, you know. So I just want to make sure American Christians are listening. You are co-signing on the death of your Christian brothers in Lebanon to support your Jewish friends in Israel. Now, remember, the Jewish peoples, until they come to the Lord Jesus Christ, they spend eternity separated from God. That means hell. Okay. John 14:6 tells us so clearly, Jesus says it, I am the way, the truth, the life. There is no other way to the Father except through me. So the Christian in America right now who is cheering on this just atrocities in the Middle East, celebrating the death of brown innocent people, I'll never understand why that just is okay in America, the American Christian heart. I don't understand. I'm having a hard time understanding that Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, Matthew 5:9, for they are the true sons of God. I don't know if our current Christians in America are reading the New Testament. We're not in an all-out war against every enemy of Israel. Okay, we're actually seeking peace worldwide. So we've got to get back to the basics of the Gospels. Sermon on the Mount can change all this in the heartbeat. But the American Christians not understanding that they're killing your Christian brethren. They're brown, so I understand that we look at them differently. But those people also said, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And you say, I don't care about that. You're in a region of the world that has been deemed evil. So my Jewish brothers are going to kill you, and I'm going to applaud that. Why in the world is that? That is so disgraceful that American pastors are not going to town on the hypocrisy and understanding that Jesus Christ, he's opposed to all of this, all of it. Okay. So we have major evil happening right now all around the world. And our President Trump, appears to be out of control in his ability to stop this. The Strait of Hormuz is under Iran's control. They are dictating the terms in the region. I don't think that's up for debate. The Americans can't stand that, though, and that means that we need to up the aggression. So you will see this week intensified bombings in Iran, and it will be blamed on the fact that they're attacking allies in the region. You know, they're attacking allies in the region. Ever stop and ask, what are we doing with all these bases, military people exposed in the Middle East? Let me ask the people differently. Do you think our American military service members, do you think they're at more risk in the Middle East or here behind the wall that encompasses the United States, and they're on guard to protect the homeland? Just ask yourself, I wonder if they're at greater risk of retaliation in the UAE or in Iraq than they would be here at home. And you just have to answer that for yourself. So number one thing you can do to help all this, get out of the Middle East and stay out of the Middle East forever. If Israel wants to continue to do these hostile acts to its neighbors, let them do it. They just don't have our blessing, and we can't pay for it anymore. Okay, because we're going to get into inflation, and that's going to be the kiss of death for Donald Trump. All these baby boomers who are also supporting the war in Iran, meaning they are actually, that's the number one thing they fear as they go to bed. They lay their head on their pillow 6, 7 o'clock at night. And it's the first thing they're scared of when they wake up. Apparently, that is at mass scale in America. Now, just break down that statement and make sure we understand what we're talking about. The average Trump voting baby boomer is going home, evidently. The number one fear on his mind, and has been for some time, is that Iran gets a nuclear weapon. Okay, so that's their number one fear. They think about that more. Now, these people may have grandchildren. They may have their own personal health concerns. They might have health concerns in their family. They might be worried about their children that has been maybe addicted to drugs, or their community that they've seen go down the hill. All that stuff's still going on. And the baby boomer, the senior voter, 62 to 80-year-old right now, they say, I don't care about any of that. Don't you dare let Iran get a nuclear weapon. Okay, so that's the base of people that we're working with. The good thing about that same group of people is, you know what they say all the time? We're on a fixed income. We're on Social Security. We're on Medicare. We're on a fixed income. Okay, well, that fixed income is getting chewed away at a really rapid rate. We'll play some inflation clips because Donald Trump 2024 campaign leading up to election, that was the number one thing. Look what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden did to this economy. Now, Trump is a liar historically. He's lying about the quality of the economy that was left. And we have to acknowledge the 2020 election was a fake, rigged, stolen election. Anybody who believes 81 million people mailed in their vote for Joe Biden, is either high, delusional, or they're operating with captured thinking. It just didn't happen. Okay. And that's why they trickled in the 100,000 chunks for Joe Biden. Oh, another delivery just came in. Oh, Joe Biden's in the lead. Oh, January 6th, rest is history. But the main selling point back then, folks, was inflation. Inflation, it's always been about these people's money. They can pretend to have these hearts for others. And yeah, that's a cost. At the end of the day, all these people that are saying, go to the Middle East, they'll pick their money every time over justice in the Middle East. Oh, they're setting free the captives. They don't care about that. They care about their money. And then because they're so scared by the leader that they've chosen has really gone off track and we might not get Donald Trump back. I mean, I think he's now at a point to where it would take a 180 today. I'm leaving Iran today. I'm releasing the Epstein files today. We're going to prosecute the fraud we found in the USAID today. We're going to finish the wall today. All that's happening. That's the only thing that gets him back into good graces. And that could give you some indication that this man hadn't lost his complete mind. But as it stands right now, this is a rogue president operating with another rogue country in Israel. You understand when you step back, Israel doesn't have a friend in the world. And quite frankly, neither do we. You ever think about that we're both these pariah countries? Yeah, these countries want to leech and suck off the United States. They're not partners. They do hate us. They are against us, but we're so rich and so sloppy with money. Well, then they got their hand out to do it. But without the United States, Israel doesn't have a friend on the planet. Why is that? The whole world's not Muslim. Why are they not able to be better friends with other countries? It's a pariah nation, a rogue nation. And now the U.S. has chosen to take their destiny and place it in that same fate. I don't understand it. I don't know how these people that aren't even religious. This is the other thing, too. People that support Israel right now in America, the Christian Zionists or just the Zionists, meaning they're not even Christian. They're just the Zionists. They believe in this fake Judeo-Christian brotherhood that if we didn't have Israel somehow as friends, the United States doesn't make it. They're over. Now, they're supposed to give us intelligence, and supposedly they weren't involved in 9/11, but they weren't able to provide any key details about 9/11. And supposedly a guy in a cave in Afghanistan took out 3 buildings in New York City with 2 planes, and they all fell demolition style, free fall style. How is that possible? We're not supposed to ask questions like that. Judeo-Christian to the end here in America. But our baby boomer who complains all the time, okay, about that fixed income, this war is going to eat them alive. It's just getting started, folks. We haven't seen the food supply shortages. We know about the fertilizer, natural gas, liquefied natural gas. We know about the Strait of Hormuz now causing, for example, here in Colorado, average gallon of gas statewide is $4.49. If you want to go into an election with a bullseye on your back saying, take me out, send us to the polls having been paying $4.49, $5 a gallon for the past 6 months, and tell us how Iran being destroyed was in our best interest, because that's going to affect our food prices, our services prices. Nobody's asking any questions just yet. Why? That baby boomers hadn't been fully consumed by this inflation. Their love for Donald Trump, they're sick of, this is a sycophant relationship, meaning he's clearly not defending your values, but he was who you voted for, and you put a tremendous amount of hope and value and stock and all that to you. So the baby boomers said, okay, we trust you all the way, and we're going to pay for it for a little while. We're willing to pay for this. Wow, expensive gas for no reason. I mean, if you remember, the peak Joe Biden gas in Colorado was $5 a gallon, and it only lasted several weeks. It was not like you were paying $5 a gallon for an entire summer, but you probably had a thick month of $5 gas, and it did this and it did this, and it still stayed above $3. It was very high. Trump came in, and we saw energy prices at the pump maybe closer to $2.25, $2.30, $2.40. We're at $4.40 now. And there's no mechanism to get us back down unless you leave the war. You have to say we're out, and things need to begin. And we're actually sorry, Iran, for causing, and we're sorry to the world that we've caused this massive disruption, and we accomplished nothing. Donald Trump, I don't think the baby boomer really understands. There's only 2 choices here. You leave the war right now as is, having not won anything. destroyed a lot of things, broken infrastructure, killed people, raised the cost of living for us here in America. You accomplished no successes. They told us that they didn't have a nuclear program in July, and you bombed them again. You killed the bad leader. Your regime changed it. We're still there, but we can't leave. Why? We didn't do anything. We accomplished nothing. Putting the guy's son is not regime change. And if you heard Marco Rubio over the weekend, what he described, it wasn't that they had this is what he's describing it as now. And that's why the baby boomer is going to just not understand what's happening to them. It's not that they have a nuclear weapon right now. They don't. And everybody knows that. We can see that. And it's clear that they don't. But what he says why we had to do this now first, this is the third story. Remember, it was because Israel was going to attack. Then it was because a nuclear threat was imminent, days away. Now what he's describing, the reason we had to do what we do when we did it, is that Iran was building up such a drone arsenal and such a missile arsenal, in fact, creating their own Golden Dome, to where they would be impenetrable, to where if we ever did have a problem with the nuclear, it would be too hard to get into. So again, still ain't gonna fly, because we have to pay for that now preemptively. And I have a feeling that they wouldn't need any of that stuff if the idea was peace. So you tell Israel, hey, listen, we're out. We don't have the 18 billion a year in aid anymore. We don't actually have any political positions for you in our country. All dual citizens, Israeli Americans, they have to go tomorrow. You cannot be a dual citizen and serve in the U.S. Congress. And we're littered with them. 15% of Congress is Jewish, representing Jewish interests. We can't have that anymore. Look where it's taking us. It's taking us into outrageous levels of inflation, death, waste of military resources. So if you actually did have an imminent threat, a big time problem with a major power, China, Russia, these people say these guys are crazy. Let's go get them right now. We've depleted through Ukraine. We've depleted through Iran. Why? Why did you do it, Donald Trump? It's because we don't think you're actually making your own decisions right now, because this was not your number one issue. You've embarrassed yourself beyond recovery with the Epstein files. And he cannot release the Epstein files. I just want to make sure we're all so clear. He can't do it. The reason he can't do it is because he's in them. And it looks so bad. He didn't need to make himself the star of the files, and he did. And his team did, because they were so shady. They were so sneaky, because they knew what was in it. So what's clear is that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were soliciting, involving, enjoying this sickness with other people. It wasn't just the two of them. That's so clear now. The emails are 3.5 million. They're still holding on to another 3 million. And it's like, again, here's all these baby boomers that say they love their grandchildren. These are your grandchildren and the victims in this. Why don't you care? What is wrong with you? They took babies and children and toddlers from their home, and then they did the most horrific things to them. And the baby boomer still says Iran. Why? So I think we have a major problem with a certain generation, and I think it's going to be just them. Once they break, and it's going to be their money because they're so cheap already. Once you say, hey, senior, buckle up, $6 gas is coming. Hey, buckle up, your grocery bill, instead of $220 a month, it's $280. Okay. Senior, you can't afford wars. I don't think you understand this. You can barely afford peace times with Social Security. I get it. It's not a lot of money, has to go a long way. But yet you sign off on stuff that eats into that little bit of money that you're bringing in there, that you've passed the buck to the younger generation that didn't get to buy a $80,000 house in a nice neighborhood. He's not going to get to do that. He's lucky to rent an apartment now at something that's not in a terrible area, right? But he's not going to have a yard and a picket fence. And that was a baby boomer special. And what did they do? They hoarded those things. They're selling those things. They're not passing those homes down. And I think that baby boomer knows their grandchildren aren't buying homes. They're not going to be anything like that. They know that their grandchildren, both the husband and the wife, are going to work full time, and it's going to affect their decision to have children. And the baby boomer being so self-centered, I don't care. I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I can't sleep at night thinking that. That's sick. Oh, it's so sick. It's so sick. So if we look into Donald Trump's now, he's got 6 months. We have midterm elections in 6 months. And here's what happens to the negative when Democrats gain control. All they have to do is run inflation, inflation, inflation. That's all they have to do. It says Donald Trump has made your life unaffordable. And that's true. And he has no defense because his defense is something we all disagree with. Yeah, the reason gas is up is because I saved the world from Iran. Nobody believes that, though. Nobody believes that the world, maybe Israel, and again, the world doesn't center around Israel. Got to set that aside. But the world was not in any capacity worried about Iran destroying the planet the day they got a nuclear weapon, and that could be any day. So you raised our cost of living for a fear that didn't exist, a fear that you've intensified through propaganda on TV. Was it Israel invading? Was it imminent nuclear threat? Or was it they were building up a drone arsenal that would be hard to penetrate if you ever had to invade Iran? How about this? See, Iran, we want nothing to do with you. Don't mess around with us, and we'll stay 6,000, 7,000 miles away. But we didn't do that. At the behest of Israel, we went in, and now we are in for the long term. And you'd ask yourself, okay, great. What are we going to get out of it as Americans? So let's just make sure we do understand best case scenario victory in Iran. What does it look like? Does it look like that's a nation that's now we're at peace with? Obviously not. Does it somehow make energy flow better and get cheaper? I don't see how it could. This is now going to be the most hostile region in the world going forward, with damage to the area and damage to the infrastructure. Trump will eventually have to take out all their power, all their water, sanitation, Karg Island. That's the only way the U.S. wins in this thing, is just complete submission. You wipe out 92 million, kill them all, like he said on Easter. He said, if you don't open the strait, this civilization is toast. That's what he said. And we had MAGA boomers saying, yeah, kill them all. For what, though? Again, I still want to know, what do I get out of it? I have not yet once in my life, and maybe it's just because I'm such a stud, lost a wink of sleep, even thinking. I get so disinterested in the thought, I go to something else, that Iran is over there sitting there thinking, this is all of our resources going into a nuclear weapon. The day we get them, we're going to blow one up over the United States. They'll never see it coming, because evidently our military, once they get a nuclear weapon, our military will be able to do nothing about it. It'll just come right over and they say, yep, they launched it, so we have to just sit here and let it land. What a bummer. I wish we could. That's not true at all. This propaganda. But I have a feeling if Iran did have a nuclear weapon, nobody would ever touch them again. And guess what? They're not going to be an expansionist empire. Does anybody here, does a baby boomer with an IQ above 50 really believe that because they possess a nuclear weapon, that Iran then takes over Africa, moves into Asia, they're going to spread into Europe, that Iran is the new Great Britain, is the new United States, because they have that. Pakistan has that. What did Pakistan? Why are we okay with Pakistan and Israel having nuclear weapons? Well, I know we liked it because Pakistan at the time, we were mad at India, so we did that. Israel is put a gun to our head and said, we will have nuclear weapons. And if you remember John F. Kennedy, he didn't want them having any of that. He wanted them to register as a foreign agent. He didn't want this nefarious, incestuous relationship with Israel, and they killed him. Right in front of all of us, they killed him. It wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald from the grassy knoll, from the book Suppository. None of that happened, but you didn't deal with that, baby boomer. You didn't deal with, Vietnam, and you've not learned from the lies they've been shoving down your throat. Why won't you learn that this government is out to kill, steal, and destroy? Reminds you a lot of Satan in the New Testament, doesn't it? Same words. That's what they're doing. So you have a choice today. Do you think that your government is doing each and everything they can for your best interest? Or do you think they're doing each and everything for their own best interest? It's not a hard question, and you know the answer. And the truth is, why are you supporting this? To the senior, wake up. To the Democrat, okay, there is an allegiance to be had here, but it doesn't mean some disgusting candidate that wants to mutilate children, that wants to abort 8.5-month-old fetuses, that wants DEI. Get rid of all that too, Democrat. Nobody interested in that. We're as turned off as that as we were turned off the conduct of Donald Trump. He hid the files. He started new wars. Let's get rid of all that. There's a great synergy, though. It's called we the people are sick of the lies. And they're coming from both sides. Joe Biden, just so we're clear, the biggest scumbag ever to hold office. See, the difference why we're so disgusted with Donald Trump, we trusted you. You told us you were going to drain a swamp. You said that in 2015. There's actually a list of swamp creatures in the Epstein files that you could get today. You won't do it. Okay. We demanded mass deportation. We said we got to have these 20 million people that this horrific President Biden let in. They all have to go. And they screwed that up. And I think they did it intentionally because they messed around with this Diego Garcia, the Maryland man, the dad. Remember, he was describing all these felonies, but CNN and all these left. This Maryland dad being deported. Well, we sent him back and forth to Venezuela like 10 times. And then the mass deportation, they stopped. I don't even think they got 10,000 people deported. I remember they lied to us and saying, oh, yeah, we're having record turnout for self-deportations. That's all been a lie, folks. And then I guess the one that's really the most cruel is this intensifying inflation. I mean, this is kiss of death for Donald Trump, and he walked right into it, but he should have known better, had to know better, right? You have to know better about this stuff, that when you walk into wars, increase the cost of living. Or was he so naive that he thought he would go into a country of 92 million one weekend of bombing and it would all be over? That was supposed to be Operation Midnight Hammer, where we took out the nuclear facilities, and that didn't work. We killed the Ayatollah. We're still there. What are we still doing there? And the inflation really hasn't come to fruition yet. It's going to get itself deep into that supply chain, and everything is going up. So you could have a stagflation environment here that we're in, basically. Where's the growth? Where's the jobs? Where's the exciting industry in America? I don't know. We're not paying attention to America. We seem to have no interest in America. We're everywhere but America. In fact, Trump just states the other day, we'll hit Cuba on the way home. So I hear talk in Ukraine, Russia, Iran, Israel, the Middle East. I hear it there. I hear Greenland ambitions. We did go in and steal Venezuela. And again, I want a bounty for that. I mean, as American taxpayer, don't we have to benefit at some point from some of these wars or some of these things we're doing? When do we get a piece of the action? When do we get a better life as a result of our effort? I don't understand, but we're funding it all. We're the sponsor for all of this stuff. So when do we get a piece of it? And we don't. And then we're going to hit Cuba on the way back home, Donald Trump says. So we have a major catastrophe brewing in which we are going to get Democrat control in Congress in November. And that's all thanks to Trump. In the meantime, we are going to have intensified bombings in the Middle East that pairs along with intensified inflation. So we just have to sit here while nothing gets done for America, watch a war we disagree with, pay prices that we can't afford. And we're supposed to say the system's working? How? For who? Okay. So if you're not on Social Security and you're not retired and you not have a mortgage-free home, it's a pretty tough life out there. So really, this is just now that little chunk of and it's a big chunk of the country. Don't get me wrong. A lot of resources buried within that 60 to 82-year-old baby boomer generation. We're just basically waiting for the pressure to get to them now. And then this country has a chance to really start over. That senior is not going to be okay with these prices a month, 2 months, 3 months from now. And they're going to be more expensive. That senior can't handle it. And so what we're going to say as a senior, you can say mercy anytime. And all it does is the Fox News team. No, we're totally opposed. We don't want anything to do with wars. We get it now. We see that wars in Vietnam, wars in the Middle East, the 01, the Kuwait, and then we go into 9/11 and we're in there for 20 years, and now we're in Ukraine, and now we get it. The wars don't work. We understand that as the wars continue, quality of life in America continues to erode. We've got 3 million children in poverty in America. We still have 20 million illegal aliens. We have inflation. We have record credit card debt. We have all these terrible things happening. The baby boomers not connecting the dots. And that's really the concern right now, is that if you love your children that might be in their 20s, 30s, or 40s, you'll change that mentality from selfish to selfless. If you love your grandchildren that have it even a harder go at things than your children, you'd say, you're right. I'm only thinking of myself. What am I so scared of? Why am I so scared of Iran as a 68, 69, 72-year-old retired person in America? I don't think you're properly analyzing the situation. So we just ask that you get into deep thought, deep prayer, and really take a look at that heart of yours. Is it only about the baby boomer, or is it almost like, boy, I forget how good we had it. I forget that we could buy the $80,000 home, have 4 kids. Mom could stay at home, raise those kids. Dad could be a blue collar guy, work his butt off, put food on the table, do that for 30 years. And I'm asking the baby boomer, maybe go back and think about it. Remember, because it looks nothing like that today. Okay. So predictions coming up, inflation obviously only going one direction. You're going to absolutely get intensified bombings this week. We have no choice. We either have to turn around and leave now or finish the job. And finish the job, unfortunately, means all Iranians have to go. So they're going to have to take out critical infrastructure. They're going to have to cause mass starvation, mass medical crises. It's not my choice. It's the culture now saying whatever President Trump says, we're going to go for. And I think you also have a duty as an American to say, President Trump, you've gotten so far off track and we love you so much. You got to do 180 today, or else we're going to have to replace you. And I think for Donald Trump, he really might need a moment, because the safest thing for Donald Trump right now, and I think it might be the best for the country, even though J.D. Vance and these people are all, it's all the same monster, just wearing different clothing, is he could go to J.D. Vance and the kind of powers that are controlling him. Donald Trump, this is such a sad statement. He has become completely captured. And we were told that nobody can buy this man and nobody influences. It's the opposite. He's been totally consumed, totally captured. He is no longer making his own decisions. That's very clear. Because if he did, he could have never been elected this way. Think about this. Of course, every Democrat hates Donald Trump, but now half of Republicans thinks he's a total scumbag, total liar, betrayer, treason, pedophile. Half of Republicans think that. So no, you can't win an election with a third support, right? So we know this is not his own thinking or doing, because he could never gotten in office this way. And instead of turning his rage back to his political enemies, he's turning it to those that are holding to account. Those that are saying, what are you doing in a war? What are you doing withholding the Epstein files? What are you doing not deporting all these people? What are you doing? Doing none of the things we sent you to do. And again, nobody can give us a good concrete answer. Here's something Donald Trump has done that is moving America in the right direction. What is it? Border got closed. It's not all the way closed, but it's supposed to be closed. Took boys out of girls' sports. Boys are supposed to be out of girls' sports. Okay, that doesn't count. Big, beautiful bill. That didn't help us. That hurt us. Again, email the show, thematthewdarkshow@gmail.com. We need to know tangibly how has America gotten better, and not just return to standards. Don't count Joe Biden and that freak show. Advance America. We're supposed to be grateful because the border that's by law supposed to be closed is now closed. And we got to give you credit for that. Can't do it. No, can't do it. We're supposed to give him credit for releasing 3.5 million files when the law says they got to release 6 million. Can't give you credit for that. Okay. We can't pay any more of this prices because we said we don't want to do wars. And we're doing an intensive amount of wars. I just don't know when's enough, but I think money talks. And I think boomers just sort of so saturating in this very expensive economy. And now they're making cuts because of Donald Trump. Can't go see the grandkids this weekend because of Donald Trump. Let a few weeks, months of that really get into their hearts. And then ask them, are you still for killing the brown children in the Middle East? Are you still saying we should send our sons and daughters over there and risk their lives for what again? Because you couldn't sleep thinking Iran might have a nuclear weapon at some point, and it was coming after you. I'll never understand that thinking because it's not sound thinking, right? And so we are going to require our voices heard. Donald Trump, please stop, right? You're doing a terrible job. You did do a terrible job with COVID. You gave us the COVID-19 shot, called it Operation Warp Speed. You signed off on 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And that destroyed the American economy. Small businesses that are never coming back because of stuff like that. You won't go after your political enemies that were ready to change America. And you won't do anything about that. You want to go after James Comey and the 8647 shells, but not Russia, but not the leaking information. Why are you doing that? So we know something's up. We know this is for show. We know we've been betrayed. And now we're saying, okay, we see the betrayal. We're calling it out. But if you're still saying that this is the same man that came down the escalators in 2015, talking about building a wall, draining the swamp, wake up. We are so far off of that track, you ain't getting back there. We're just now hoping that the slightest bit of reason happens in which we stop going to wars. We're hoping that the slightest bit of reason happens and that we're not actually going to protect pedophiles, are we? We're not actually going to say that the sender of this disgusting email to Jeffrey Epstein should not even be, we're not actually going to do that, right? And he's doing that, and it's going to cost him everything. So he goes to JD Vance, he goes to this team, and he says, I don't want to do this anymore. This is all or nothing for Donald Trump. Basically, Republicans have to win until he dies or he's going to jail or worse. So he has to step down. He has to go to JD Vance and he has to say, I need a pardon on everything from 1970 until the day I leave office. Full pardon. And then he has to disappear. You'll never have seen anything like it. The greatest rise and fall in political history you're witnessing right now. The crash and burn is happening before our eyes. It's just how low's that bottom, and it's much lower. It's much lower than this. So I think we pray for President Trump that the Holy Spirit kind of recapture his heart and get his thinking right. To say I'm hopeful for that, God can do anything. This is a pretty secular man that's in a lot of trouble, who's partnered with some pretty bad guys, and I don't think you can get out of that safely. And maybe for the good of this country and the restart and the reset and the cleansing that it needs, maybe it does take a political idol, a political icon like Donald Trump crashing and burning before we wake up and see these are men. They're mere men. They're nothing. They're not celebrities. They're not rock stars. They're nothing. And we treat them like that. We treat them like gods. We put them above God, and we somehow think, well, these are smart men. They would never go bad. These are smart men. They would never make a mistaken decision. And we're actually seeing that from our chair. They're making mistakes all over the place. It's just nobody's telling them no. And so we're here to say no. We're here to say wake up. We're here to say get in the fight. You have very little time, especially some states, election season coming. November is going to be a very scary time in America because it's going to go so blue. It's going to be so expensive. You're now going to have a who cares about elections, the political process. Trump is going to be a lame duck, dying dog, not fighting for the American people now. He sure as hell isn't going to be fighting for them when he's being smothered by Democrat Congress. So we have a lot to look forward to here in America. Love your family and do this, folks. Serve the Lord Jesus Christ. Tell a friend about him. Stay good. God bless everybody.
Our economic future had never looked brighter when Kamala and Biden came in. They quickly blew it all up, destroyed. I keep hearing about their economy. Their economy is terrible. And the inflation is eating everybody alive. And it's been doing that for 3 years.
Right now. And Donald John Trump is in the worst position he has ever been on inflation. And more than that, these are the worst numbers I've ever seen for any president. I mean, just look at this. Look at this. According to Ipsos, look at this net approval rating on inflation. We got the latest poll out. He's 49 points underwater. That means that 49% more of the public disapprove than approve of the job he's doing. I went back. You remember Joe Biden? Inflation absolutely crushed his presidency. But at his worst, according to Ipsos, he was just 43 points underwater. So Trump is lower now on inflation than Joe Biden ever was, according to Ipsos. And I will note that the inflation rate right now is only about a third as it was back in June of 2022. Yet Trump's numbers are significantly worse than Biden's ever were.
Even the one that comes to mind is Jimmy Carter. That was when inflation was really stratospheric. So how does Trump compare to Carter on those numbers?
Yeah, these are really stunning numbers right here. But what about James Earl Carter, right? You think of inflation, as Johnny B was talking about. You think about inflation-seeking presidencies. You think of Jimmy Carter. But just look here. Okay, if we look right now at, we're talking about net approvals on inflation, this number should actually be 46%, minus 46. And if you look at this, though, even if I raise it a little bit and I correct my error right here live on air, we're talking about minus 46 points versus minus 49 points. Donald Trump is in worse position on inflation than Jimmy Carter was, when, of course, Carter then got blown out by Ronald Reagan back in 1980.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.